Welcome back to Debrief. At 9:15 a.m. on August 1st, 2014, right in the middle of the war between Israel and Hamas, 23-year-old Lieutenant Hodari Goldin became one of the many casualties of war. A massive network of underground structures in Gaza, so-called terror tunnels, turned out to be the biggest threat Hamas posed, and later the subject of some fierce criticism and a pretty scathing state controller report, accusations that Israel dropped the ball in preparing for the threat. Hodari Goldin's commando unit had advanced towards one of those tunnels when a Hamas militant emerged and opened fire. 2 soldiers were killed. Hodari was captured and dragged inside. It was over 24 agonizing hours before the army declared his death, and it all happened during a UN-brokered ceasefire. Since that moment, his family has been campaigning to get their son's body back and stop it from being used by Hamas as leverage. I sat down with Hodari's mom, Leah Goldin, on all of that and how they have gotten through every parent's worst nightmare. Leah Goldin, thanks very much for being with us. Let's just begin with that day, with August 1st, 2014. Tell us how you found out initially what happened.
On 2014, we had the Operation Protective Age. Actually, we sent 2 of our kids to Gaza, Hodari and Sur, twin brothers. After the war, we realized that they were 700 meters apart. And Sur was actually was getting the call to rescue Hodari. So during the whole 50 days, we had 2 kids in Gaza. And officially, there was the delegation, you know. I don't know to say it in English. I call it Mishlachat Malachim Ra'im, you know, like the evil, a mission from the evil. Because there is, it was on a Friday, around noon, when they just arrived. And told me that actually Hodari was kidnapped. I mean, that was, Hodari was, for 36 hours, he was kidnapped. Now, Hodari, this is important, Hodari was killed 2 hours after ceasefire was declared. And the Hamas actually took advantage of knowing that the Israeli soldiers' protocol is not to shoot during ceasefire. And they ambushed them, killed 3 of them, and kidnapped Hodari's body deep into the tunnels, underground tunnels.
How do you explain then why 2 years and 9 months later, Hodari is still there in Gaza, why the Israeli government has not managed to get him out?
Not much of explanation, just reality. 2 years and 9 months after the war, and the Hamas still is keeping Hodari's body and another soldier, Shaul Ron's body, trying to use them as a bargain chip, which is very wrong. I mean, this is a very anti-humanitarian issue. First of all, violating a ceasefire, then kidnapping a body and refusing to return it to us for a decent burial. This is anti-human rights, anti-human dignity. And we know that in Israel they try to do their best, but doing best not necessarily provide the results. So we decided to approach the international community. Since Hodari was killed in a ceasefire, we learned that actually Hodari is a victim of a ceasefire rather than a victim of a war. And since this ceasefire was brokered by Ban Ki-moon, General Secretary of the UN, and John Kerry, Secretary of State of the United States, we think that they should, not just we, a lot of people think that they should bear some responsibility for their return, at least the same they had once they brokered this ceasefire.
So what kind of response did you get from the international community, from the UN back then, and from the new U.S. administration? You've spoken to the new U.S. ambassador already.
Actually, 3 months after the war, we went to the UN. We sent letters to Ban Ki-moon, and we tried to approach John Kerry and Obama. We didn't manage.
Practically speaking, what would you like to see them do? How would you like to see either the UN or the Trump administration bringing Hodari back into Israel?
We hope that if the new administration, America, will approach the countries in the region, like indirect effect, that are supporting or have any contact with the Hamas, that way they can motivate the Hamas to put an end to this ugly thing and return Hodari home. For instance, there is Qatar that supports financially the Hamas. There is Turkey, the Muslim Brotherhood, that supports the Hamas, and all their headquarters are actually located in Turkey. There is Egypt, that is the gatekeeper of the Hamas in and out Gaza. And I believe there are others. And they are all looking now to improve the relations with the new administration. Having this new attitude towards terror, this is a good, wonderful opportunity just to raise our issue as a measure that those countries, to show that they are really acting accordingly, in accordance to our values, to our humanitarian values,
So if you could send a direct message to the Trump administration, what would you tell them? What do you want to say to them?
I would say that this kind of a new terror type, it's a new way of terror attack. It's not just a terror attack that you have the event and the casualties. It's an ongoing attack against families and eventually against society, and specifically against our values, because we actually bring, and Hodari's case is actually a humanitarian issue. I mean, and I think that if the whole world is now worried about to rebuild Gaza and provide humanitarian aid, we say, everyone that provides humanitarian aid, not just the Hamas that get it, also the entities, the NGO entities, and the other countries, everyone should comply our humanitarian values once they want to benefit from them. I believe that now we have a new atmosphere, a new administration, with no attitude, and it's the right time to resolve this case that, in a way, the U.S. and the UN are responsible, because it's one thing to go around the world to arrange ceasefires and somehow enforce them, but then taking responsibility about the consequences of ceasefire with terror organization, this is also something they should take responsibility.
We're going out for a quick break. When we're back, more of this interview, Leah Goldin, on how the family sees the controversial Israeli practice of prisoner exchanges and how they have gotten through every parent's worst nightmare. That and much more when we're back right here on Debrief. Don't go anywhere.